All right, let's just do this. Kick it off here. Welcome to Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I'm your host, Rich Barris, the People's Pundit. Don't forget to like the videos if you like them and to share them far and wide. All right, it has been a week to the day since I gave my solicited opinions to the White House on the direction of the Republican agenda and what they can expect over this next year, given several different scenarios and pathways that they could decide to move forward this year, where their current status was, why I believed it is the case where they are, and what they should do about it. It's been a week, and here we are again. The administration very clearly listens, wants to listen, but you have to understand how Washington, D.C. works. And you have to understand how the presidency can be very isolating, especially when you have gatekeepers. Some of you are shaking my high protein yogurt shake. All right. So you can see the president today is doing a roundtable on healthcare, which is a very good start. This is the facts. This is where we are. This administration needs a very, very strong pivot to the domestic agenda, a popular domestic agenda, and they need to campaign against Republicans if they don't want to go along because it's an election year. And if they get bogged down or entangled in another foreign policy disaster or even decision, then, which, to be clear, just so everybody understands, this is not the Bush administration, okay? They were kind of like surprised that people didn't trust them. And I had to explain the PTSD that the American public has suffered because of their treatment by their leaders over the last, decades, particularly on the Republican side. The problem is real because Republicans, unlike Democrats, are constantly betrayed by their own leaders, their own political figures, their elected representatives, their presidents, et cetera, et cetera. Democrats aren't, because we talked about this before. The Democratic donor base is much, much more ideologically aligned with their voting base than the Republican donor base is ideologically aligned with their voter base. Republican donors, that whole crew, they don't reflect you at all. If you're a voting Republican sitting at home, they have a completely different take on the world. They don't understand you or your current economic situation. They don't understand your place in society. They don't even know what you're bitching and moaning about. Like, this is how these people feel. I remember used to talk to Charlie about this all the time because he had to deal with them at Turning Point, obviously. And he would always, talk to me because I know this world, right? Like the donors will call me and be like, what's going on? And why are people thinking the way they think? And then they just are so smart. They know what they're doing better than you anyway. So it's like a complete waste of the phone call. And then they just go on to do what they were going to do to begin with. It's unreal. The Republican donor base is really a creature all on their own. They're living in another world because they don't even have much in common with the Democratic donor base. So they have more in common with them, however, than they do have with you. And that's just a fact. That's just a fact, especially as a life experience. All right. Your personal life experience and how it is to be an average American living in the United States. All right. So very clearly, in anticipation of midterm losses, which I don't accept, and I don't think they should either, right? Like the pendulum swing, the modern pendulum swing, which has led us to say things like the president's party always loses seats in the midterm or always loses ground in the midterm, is a modern phenomena. Democrats controlled Congress before the Republican Revolution in 94 for decades. It's a modern phenomenon because our system has become so broken, it's now an artifact of that system. A president and his party get swept in on a wave kind of election, or they're brought in on a wave kind of election, and they let down the American voter. And then the American voter, 2 years later, takes out their anger on them. That's what's going on. People are acting like this is an act of God or something. It's inevitable, and there's nothing you can do to change it. That's bullshit. The system is broken, and before it broke as badly as it is broken now, that didn't happen. People elected the party they wanted to elect based on the agenda. The difference is that they used to enact that agenda. The problem parties keep running into, Democrats did it in 08 after they swept in, because the country did not want Obamacare. They didn't listen. They got their ass kicked. Asses kicked. In 2016, when Donald Trump came in and swept a very large Republican majority in with him in the House and in the Senate, of course, but the majority in the House was big. I want to say it was 247, 243. I'd have to go back and look, but it was a much, much bigger margin that they had when Donald Trump won re-election in 24 again, because they didn't perform as well as Donald Trump this time. And they underperformed him in a lot of places as well. New Hampshire, great example in 16. But in 24, the American public was wiser, and they were wiser to the Republican grift, and they decided that they were not going to do the same thing. And they gave Donald Trump a fairly easy win, and they gave Republicans a tepid stamp of approval, with the very obvious and implicit warning that if you don't do what Donald Trump ran on, we're going to fuck you, and we're going to fuck you very hard. And that's what we're going to talk about today, because as right now, we sit here right now, Donald Trump has paused, all right, or at least we know how Trump operates sometimes. Oop, let me close the door. Hang on. Sorry, guys. Anyway, I want to stand anyway. But we know how Donald Trump operates, and he may have paused for now. But I can tell you what I know, which is that this time around is a little bit different than the strikes last year on Iran. As he weighs new strikes against the regime, this time around is a little different. This time around, Donald Trump is a little bit wiser to something that's going on, and we'll just see whether or not he can withstand it. But he has now come to I would say it's fair to say he's slowly coming to the realization that a ton of people lie to him, including our own people. Foreign leaders, Benjamin Netanyahu has lied to him now many times. And on this, like the effectiveness of the strike itself, he can't even rely on his own people to tell him the truth about whether this would have a meaningful impact on the regime in Iran, and then what would happen with Iran anyway, because this is, I think, something else he's starting to come to realize now. Any concept of, well, we're going to give it back to the Iranian people is a lie. You're debating over a lie. The fact of the matter is, just put it out there, please. Thank you so much. Put it out there, please, on the table. Thank you. You're debating something, a scenario, a hypothetical that's never going to happen. The Jewish state does not want to topple the regime in Iran so they can install a leader that the Iranian people approve of, and then, have a free Iran. That's bullshit. They want part of Iran. Everyone knows it now. Like at first that was, just not something we discussed. All of these governments that the state of Israel wants us to topple for them is not because they want freedom for the people of those states. That's just bullshit. It's not. They want to quadruple the size of Israel and take huge chunks of sovereign states to do it. Donald Trump is unclear whether or not the assessment from our own people and them is even true. And that's because it does appear that the institutions are with the regime. And the only way you know that, like, again, they're telling him they halted 800 executions. I mean, I don't know why they keep parroting that, because he knows that's a lie. That's also just a complete fabrication. along with the numbers of people who have died in the protests. Even what the protests were about is a fabrication. The protests are largely economic, guys. They have really this idea, it's just like a Mossad and CIA idea that these people are out there because they're tired of theocracy and the mullahs and this extremism of the mullahs. Like that's not really true. Most of the grievances are economic, and they're caused by us because we have sanctioned the hell out of them. So it's hurting them. And also the president has realized that since the 12-day war, Iran has rebuilt. They're ready. They want us to do this. This is their way of getting regime credibility. They want us to. They're baiting us to do this. Now, if they and also apparently Donald Trump cares about the people of Israel more than Benjamin Netanyahu does, who couldn't even guarantee that their own defense systems, this is a big part of it. This is a big part of Trump's, apparently. This is a big part of his decision. He doesn't believe Netanyahu when he says we can take the retaliation. Because if it gets to a point where the Iranians have decided, okay, these strikes are designed to be an existential threat to us as the state, the regime, and we could fall. The Iranians will do what they did not do last time, which is fight back. They didn't fight back last time. And everybody was like, oh my God, the Israeli defense system is so great. That's bullshit. They relied on the US to knock most of that shit down and defend them. And the dome did not work, guys. It didn't. So Trump is like, how many Israelis are going to die in the retaliation if they have a chance to do so? And apparently he cares more than their own leaders do. They're willing to, shouldn't even be surprised at that, honestly. They're willing to sacrifice as many people as they need to sacrifice in order to get greater Israel. And that's just their goal, and that's it. Which gets us, why does this matter so much? Because this is where it all went wrong. This is where America First and Trump 2.0 went all wrong in 2025. This is how they got off the rails. What little bit of assistance they did lend to the state of Israel for their own policy goals turned into sucking all of the oxygen out of the room. And the domestic agenda fell off the map. The shutdown, by the way, while all of this was being debated, the government was shut down for a huge part of the legislative session for that year. It was the longest shutdown in history, and the American public feels that they didn't do shit for them. Or at least not enough. Like the BBB for them is not that big of a deal. I told them before the new year, by the way, to fix the healthcare problem. So if you woke up this morning with a larger deductible, or you woke up this morning with your copay on your prescription drugs being much, much higher, I tried. They thought other things that have to do with foreign nations were more important. They didn't close that, so now you're going to suffer for this entire year. And I found it funny because they have so much riding on the effects of the big, beautiful bill kicking in this year. When people do their taxes, they're going to see, okay, they had so much riding on that. Why on earth would you think that wouldn't all go down the friggin' drain with increases to the cost and copays for most medicines? It's nuts. They just didn't think it was a big deal. Anyway, so now that we are in this new year, and this very same crew that derailed MAGA in 2025 are trying to derail it again, because you can very clearly see the White House trying to pivot to the domestic. They're trying. And a lot of this is media when it comes to the message. I told them how to deal with that. You just starve the media of their headlines. Donald Trump has got to learn sometimes when the media, and he's out there talking about healthcare, when the media, they did it today, and he fell for it again today. When the media, who is supposed to be there to cover a health care brunch, summit, whatever, you don't answer questions about Iran. You don't answer questions about Venezuela. Mr. President, have you decided what you're going to do in Iran? This is the thing about healthcare. We're talking about healthcare right now. End of story. You have to starve them of their headlines, but he doesn't. I'm going to make that decision. Right now, it's all options are on the table. And wrong. The answer is we're talking about healthcare. Healthcare is broken because the big pharma and the healthcare companies own the Democratic Party. So we, as Republicans, don't forget to vote Republican next November, are trying to fix healthcare. You want to talk about Iran? Be at the briefing on Iran at the Defense Department or the State Department. That's it. Done. Simple. But the discipline is not there anymore. What's the point of all of this gatekeeping Susie's doing if the discipline is not going to be there? The campaign was extremely disciplined. The first 3 to 5 months, extremely disciplined. It just went off. It just got awry. Anyway, yesterday I released something called the TART chart. Because it's very clear this crew, who's now again trying to derail the domestic agenda, this crew is pointing the fingers at everyone else, trying to blame them. In case you didn't notice, which Tucker walked into this, but he did it to give a big middle finger to all of them. I mean, that's what happened. Just so you guys understand where Tucker's coming from. Once he concluded that this was never really an honest foreign policy debate, right? This was like, I want my way, or that's it. You're a Jew hater, right? Once that became the thing, he checked out, man. And yeah, he went off the reservation a little bit. But he thought, silly him, that this was a legitimate foreign policy conversation. It's not. You give them what you want, what they want, or you're going to be attacked. It was not an accident that all of these inorganic sources started raising the profile of like Nick Fuentes and then lumping Tucker in with them. And it turned into, which was always what it was designed to do, turned into a proxy fight over 2028, right? And they were trying to be able to latch Tucker to Nick Fuentes. And then this way, if you vote for Vance, you're a groiper, even though the groipers don't even like Vance. If you support Vance as the nominee in 28, you're a groiper. You're with Tucker Carlson, right? The funny thing is they're now, and I mean, I've seen it. I've had them reach out to me and ask me to change the narrative, to help change the narrative. This is an actual ploy. They want to blame people like Tucker not being gatekept and pushed out of the movement. They want to, so I kid you not. So they want to subtract from the number in the coalition and then blame them for the losses they expect to incur in the midterms, when in reality, they are the ones to blame for Republicans' current state of affairs. They're the ones who pushed the Trump administration and a couple of very well-funded by foreign sources senators off the right track. They push them off the right track, and they want to blame other people so they don't get the blame. That's what they're doing. So the Big Con folks, the Israel First folks, the Daily Wire folks, the Shapiro and Company folks, the Barry Weiss folks, like all of them, they wanted what they wanted out of the Trump administration in the first year. They sidelined the domestic agenda, the Mark Levins, all of them. They got their little, they got part of what they wanted. They didn't get it all. And you can see them coming back now for the rest of it. They're to blame for Republicans' coalition fracturing and enthusiasm. That's really the main problem with Republicans, is enthusiasm. Their voting enthusiasm is in the doldrums. Nobody wants to vote. Nobody wants to vote. They're upset. If they don't outwardly disapprove, then they're just over all of this. And by the way, we'll have a poll over the weekend. You can see how unpopular these strikes are. I'm going to just wind up telling you guys anyway in a second, but that's what this is. This is a not so clever attempt to scapegoat people for what they did. Anyway, I will just tell you right now, this is over 70% unpopular. So do you support or oppose? In the 70s combined opposition, and even among Republicans, it's over 50%. That's how unpopular new airstrikes are on Iran. All right, let's go back, though, and revisit the TART chart. All right. Oh, and by the way, I did have a clip I wanted to play about like the kind of people who are pushing the Iranian stuff. But let's just get into the chart because it's already 223. All right. This is the approval rating trend, which I labeled yesterday the TART chart, because This is for retards who don't seem to understand how this all happened. It's so very obvious. And it's not even just our own polling. I'm going to show you Real Clear Politics by dates as well. Important dates. All right. If you remember, I should put my own thing on there. All right. But if you remember, this is where Donald Trump hit it for people who need me to somehow cite the validity of the polling. This is the most accurate poll in 2024. We were the most accurate national popular vote poll in the entire country, in the entire world. So it doesn't matter to me when other pollsters who did not poll the election correctly, either in the states or nationally, when they never had Donald Trump this high in approval because they understated him to begin with. So it doesn't matter. This is the gold standard, and you should be following it as the gold standard when it comes to Trump's popularity. And we are not new. We didn't pop up last year and decide, I think we're going to try to poll for a living, even though I've been doing something else for my entire life. We didn't do that. We've been around since 2016, and we are the only pollster, national and state level, who have correctly polled Donald Trump and his supporters that entire time, throughout the entire decade of the Trump era. So this is the gold standard, and he was that popular. Coming in office in late January after he took the keys from Joe Biden, this guy had a 55.5% approval rating and only a 37.4% disapproval rating. And by the way, we did remove his first term from our trend on the chart. The trend on the site, we did remove it. We'll wind up putting his first term approval rating. We'll wind up doing that in a separate chart as like an archive below. All right. This is going to be, because when people click on it, I looked at how Real Clear Politics did it. And I was like, you know what? This is kind of smart. And then if you want his first term approval rating, get it from another area. So I did get rid of it. That, and it looked weird, but we were polling his retrospective approval rating going into the election. And if you remember in August, 52.2, 45.2, we talked about how historically retrospective approval ratings don't rise as quickly as they rose for Donald Trump. It was a very quick 180. I'm sorry, I want Donald Trump back. It was way quicker than you saw other presidents like George W. Bush, for instance, or Herbert Walker Bush, or others that we see polled by Gallup retrospectively. It usually takes quite a bit of time before presidents who leave office consensus unpopular are then brought back to majority approval. Sometimes it could take like 10, 20 years. It takes a long time. With Donald Trump, he was retrospective majority, not majority, but positive. I believe it was 2022. Now, we did see leading up to the election that this was the first time he was majority N positive. All right, we brought it up at the time. It was extremely important. People weren't paying enough attention to it. And it really did foreshadow that he wasn't only going to win, he was going to win kind of easily. Right. So we went into November 3rd in our final poll, 52.3% approve, 45 flat disapprove. Then he exploded and ballooned out in a wave of optimism. From January to the spring, Donald Trump was riding very high. He was extremely popular. You can see going into office, he takes the keys from Joe Biden. He hits his all-time high at the end of January. That's the honeymoon period, and you shouldn't be surprised. For the next couple of months, it starts to taper out, but not badly. He's in the +6 to +9 range, which was extremely good for Donald Trump, and it held steady for a while. Something happened in March, which would later impact his numbers pretty badly. All right. There started to be questions, and this was the administration's own fault. It's how he allowed Pam Bondi to botch this. And she probably is the most hurtful cabinet member for Donald Trump. Pam Bondi, not only because of she's a crook and what's going on at the Justice Department is going to be drummed up by Democrats and used for impeaching people. That's not only the case. She's incompetent and she's an idiot. All right. The way she handled the Epstein case, bringing all these influencers, Binder Part 1, Benny, they invited Cerno, by the way, who was not stupid enough to fall for it, but other people, they burned. They burned Benny Johnson. They burned Jack, doing this like charade, which led to nothing. But in March, what happened, actually it started in February, was an intense beginning of a lobby on behalf of people who are not only from the state of Israel and members of the government and the ruling party and the ruling government coalition, but also their senators in the U.S. Senate. The Gaza ceasefire was coming to an end. And eventually, when we got to March, in mid-March, by the way, you could go look this up, Wikipedia, they archive week by week, even day by day, what the narratives were, what was the news, what were the big splashes. And by mid-March, the administration started to pivot. And people didn't really notice. If you go back and look at my videos, I do mention it. I will definitely start to bring it up in April and in May, because I started seeing like the fruits of these intense lobbying efforts. It started to bear fruit. Okay. And the administration started its initial pivot ahead of April to a little bit more on the foreign policy. At this time, and it's unfair. Get used to it. Boo-hoo. The media is unfair to Republicans and their administrations. There was this Chicken Little, the sky is going to fall predictions from everyone from, right-wing to left-wing economists that never came to, speaking of coming to fruition, that never came to pass. In fact, the inflation report we just got was great. But at that time, there was a lot of concern over inflation and tariffs because of the tariff strategy. The administration got distracted, and they didn't heed the warnings that this concern was real. And while I personally agree with the tariff strategy, it's not the point. They weren't sure what to expect out of it, because we had polled a ton on tariffs, and what was very clear is that Americans were 100% okay and on board, especially like Midwest, voters, Obama, Trump kind of voters. They are okay with using tariffs as a strategy to negotiate better trade deals. But as a whole, protectionist policy, it's been a long time since, we practiced something like that. And the administration simply did not do a good enough job alleviating their fears and also explaining that if you can narrow the trade deficit, you're going to see huge GDP numbers and economic growth is going to boom. They just got distracted. The message started to get muddled. And I'm telling you right now, this isn't a guess. This isn't my commentary. The reason the message got muddled is because of the foreign lobby. They came in and they distracted people, and they got everything off on the wrong track. And Washington is not very good at juggling. They're not very good at walking and chewing bubblegum at the same time. And we could see it, everyone at the time. I remember going on with Mark from the, oh my goodness, Mark, I'm so sorry. I'm killing you. I'm butchering. And Peter, by the way. We all did that. We had this like collective stream, and I lost my shit at the time, but I think it was with Viva was the host. And I was like, the get the message back on track. This is crazy. You're losing it. And I can already see independents and others, especially those MAGA independents that are so important for Republicans to win elections. I could already see them start to check out and say, I don't understand what's happening here. Those warnings went unheeded. And by the time we got to May, Donald Trump's approval rating had cratered. It was under a majority, and it shrunk. This isn't because of the honeymoon period ending. Trump didn't even have a honeymoon his first term. The honeymoon, you can see it clear as day on the chart. By May, there are all these questions and criticisms about the handling of the Epstein issue. They're dismissing them because they think it's not significant. It was incredibly significant, especially to those. And it's just, so convenient for certain people that Charlie's not around anymore to confirm this. But he absolutely knew. His producer, who's now the host of the show, Andrew, they knew. They heard it nonstop from people. It was a good 4%, and it all came from those new MAGA younger voters who took a look at the administration and said, I guess they were just a bunch of frauds. And this I said Two faces when I was there. You made being a Republican cool again. That ticket was the cool ticket for these kids. And they were going to come in and they were going to wreck everything. They were going to expose everything. And that's not what happened. And when it didn't happen, and that was brought up, they lashed out at them. So in the middle of all of this kerfuffle over the mishandling of the Epstein files, Trump bombs Iran. Even though a quarter of the coalition wants nothing to do with the Middle East whatsoever, which we polled at the time. It was one of the most unpopular military actions in the history of polling military actions in the United States. Second only, the Venezuela may be more unpopular. We'll have to see where this thing lands out, but it doesn't matter because new strikes is going to, this is going to take the cake. I've never seen something this unpopular before. A military action usually gets a rally around the flag effect, and then 6 months later, you're scratching your head wondering how your presidency's over. That's how this goes. That's how these trends go. Anyway, in the middle of all this, he bombs Iran. When he hears backlash from his base and his polling numbers crater, he posts on Truth Social, "Make Iran great again." And that's it. There goes the positive approval rating. It's gone. And it hasn't come back since. Now, we are among the most favorable pollster to Donald Trump. Our numbers, I believe, definitely are more accurate than everybody else's, especially the garbage you saw today from Marist and others. When Marist learns how to turn off survey forwarding, then I'll give them more, I'll give them more weight to my analysis. But these guys were never good at polling to begin with. They're horrible in the Trump era. And they are trying to move into online polling. They did this. They started ahead of 2024. We actually said that that poll at that time when it came out was the first ever online poll that they conducted. So it wasn't really accurate to compare apples to, it was apples to oranges to compare their last poll that they had. People were like, oh, look, Trump bumped up 2 points since their last poll. No, it's completely due to them changing their methodology completely. And they were still wrong. They were wrong in the Sun Belt. They were wrong in the Rust Belt. They were awful. And they still haven't turned off survey forwarding. So, like, if you got the Marist poll, you could send it to all your friends, and Marist will have no idea. No one be the wiser for it. And you guys could pollute the shit out of that poll. So remember the next time Marist, if they ever do, contact you. If they do it by text to online, meaning you'll get a text saying, hey, click on here and take this from Marist College. We're doing some polling. Click on this survey and take it at your convenience. Blah, 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 whatever their pitch is. Just take that link and send it to your friends. You'll distort the shit out of the survey. And there, I have no doubt that that's happening because it will happen if you let it. And I'm not going to tell them how to prevent that. And you can't just do it with a cookie block. That's one way. You need multiple ways to block survey forwarding. Otherwise, people will get around it. Then, of course, by July, as you can see here, the Epstein issue blows up. Trump lashes out at voters' concern and posts, I don't want their support anymore. Now, from our own polling, you guys know that roughly 13% of the voting population, the voting eligible population, actually uses Truth Social. But when somebody, a president, does something like this, the media is going to make sure that everyone in America sees it. To this day, I cannot conduct a poll without somebody, multiple, if not one person, saying, "Oh, I don't approve." Why? Can you elaborate? Well, Donald Trump told me he didn't mean my support anymore. This happens every single poll we conduct. And again, we are more favorable than the entire polling universe to Donald Trump. I happen to think that we are right and they are wrong. They're exaggerating his decline and his rising unpopularity, which he's also now aware of. I guess, eventually Tony couldn't keep handing him 60% approval polls and be serious in this current environment. I knew it was going to happen. Come the turn of the new year, the midterms are coming. They couldn't bullshit him forever. So now this is why they need a scapegoat, because it can't be their fault for advising him on the wrong thing. It can't be the fault of the Israel First crowd, for instance, because let's face it, they have a lot of like clicks they got to get, and they got a lot of views they got to sell to the highest bidder, right? And we, again, I'm just going to renew. I'm probably going to do this every video and every day on Twitter. I'm going to renew my call. We need a FARA-like law for social media influencers. Everyone in this game, everyone in this space knows who's getting paid by who. Or like we say, we know who he got or she got, meaning somebody caught him doing something. And it's like, now they've turned. All right. I love Tim Pool. I love him. But we all now see the Times of Israel is out with it. All right. So it's reported. We know. So like, this is something that's in kind of like an open secret in this field. Like, oh, so-and-so took the BB bucks. So-and-so took first of all, Tucker is not on Qatari money. He doesn't need it. He's filthy rich. He doesn't need to take money from Qatar, but others do. Some take money from India. Like, you should know that. It shouldn't be our responsibility to police our own and tell you so-and-so took money from so-and-so, right? If you look at the trend on Twitter, dealing with Dave Smith and Dinesh D'Souza's debate, all you have to do is click on today's news and you will see all the BB Buck posts. You'll know who's getting paid from who. They're all repeating the same nonsense about when Dave Smith said that Dinesh was so wrong in Iraq that he shouldn't even be in this game anymore, and tell people like Tucker what to do. They all had the same line. But Tucker supported Iraq too. Right. And one acknowledged it was a mistake, and the other one keeps advocating for making the same mistake like an idiot over and over again. Right. It's just like obvious, but you can see they all got their marching orders and they all posted the same thing. You need to know who's being paid by who. It is not cool. It is not cool. Unfortunately, like, the influencer space has been badly corrupted. So the idea of like independent media, you probably have to rethink that. There's very few of us are still independent. And I'm not even an influencer. I'm a pollster who talks about polling and gives like analysis. Influencers are like, I don't know. They're trying to influence the opinions of others, and that's fine. But I don't need BB bucks. I have a business I run, right? These guys, that is their business. So it's important for those who follow them, and it's important for the American consumer, and it's important for the voter and the integrity of the electoral process that you know who's being paid by who. And Republicans really should pass that law. Actually, I think that law would be bipartisan. You're going to get bipartisan support on that law, but it has to be done because the government hasn't caught up to the reality. You know, it's like, this is forever government's problem. They don't catch up to the times. Maybe new technology comes and the government takes a while to realize that they need some kind of regulation for this technology, something like that. That's the way it is with influencers. It's not the case anymore that they're all relying on like you and subscriptions and, from whatever. It's bullshit. They're all taking large amounts of money from governments that are not yours. And it's outrageous that you don't know that. And then others taking it from corporations. And you guys know who you are. There's a bunch of fake ass MAGA influencers who are absolutely opposed to Maha, not because they care about freedom to eat whatever you want or to do this or to do that, but because big soda and big junk food are paying them a fortune to do that. And you guys probably know what I'm talking about. If a so-called influencer is taking money from big corporations that are woke left-wing corporations, because he has influence over Pam Bondi at the Justice Department, you should know that. Especially when he's getting almost $250,000 a month to do it. And now they're going to blame others because they steered the administration and the party off the track. I don't know if you guys saw, but there's some pretty bad Senate polls for Republicans this week. It's early, sure, but when it comes to the generic ballot, it's really not early. The generic ballot is actually fairly predictive. Not now. Last November. All right, so there it is. And again, just to tee up the next group of charts I'm going to show you, which is absolutely going to confirm what I'm putting up in your face right here. We are among the most favorable to Donald Trump. And we see this issue. All right, let me get rid of that. Let me take that down. And let's just go to Real Clear Politics and you'll see. Here is the same date that is marked on the chart I just showed you, where the initial pivot to foreign policy begins. Look at where it is. This is including all the other garbage pollsters who, when Donald Trump no shit had a plus 16, plus 18 approval rating, some of these pieces of shit still had him negative. Like, there are pollsters out there that never even had Donald Trump positive, when I'm telling you the guy almost had a plus 20 approval. That's how dishonest or how bad some of the pollsters are in this average. And yet you can still see that in the pivot, March 8th is the pivot time. When this pivot began, he was still 1.2 positive, even with all the trash in the average. Look at what happened after the message got muddled up because of the foreign lobby that came to Washington, or I should say came back to Washington. And the administration could not juggle. The message got very bad. There are shows about it at the time. Now let's fast forward. During the midst of the bundling of the Epstein stuff and everything, because he had widened out and then it came back. You remember that first widening out, you guys may remember, there was a entirely fabricated media narrative about Donald Trump's first 100 days being super unpopular. Do you remember that? That was entirely fabricated. Now, that's where that first huge widening gap is. That's what some of that is in there. But there's no doubt he deteriorated, because I just showed you before, even in our polling, you could see the message get muddled and his approval rating start to go the wrong way. This is where Trump tweets, "Make Iran great again." You can see he was actually starting to recover a little bit when he did that right after. And he started to go wrong direction a couple of days before that. Why? Because this is the day he posted that. The fighting was days before. Nobody wants to deal with bombing Iran. Don't you dare do that. By the way, where are the Epstein files? And his approval started to suffer because of it, even though it was just recovering. And then he posted that, and it was sayonara to any hope that he could flip those numbers around when they were only a few points away from each other. He was still, even though it looks big on this chart, look, it's only 50.7 to 47.1. If the ship would have been righted at that time, it would have been much easier to flip those numbers positive again. Why? Because once you get independence, 28 to 36% approve, and they're that pissed off at you, it is extremely difficult to do it, to fix it and get them back on board. I'm not saying it can't be done. I think it can be done, and I think I gave them the blueprint to do it if they choose to listen. And they're trying. You can very clearly see, first of all, the vice president gets it. He gets it. Better. Not even just better, but he gets it. I am not convinced that some in the Oval even get it. I think they try, but it's hard for them to really do it. It's hard for them to really get it because they don't live in your world. They just don't. It's tough, it's really, really tough for them or anybody. It's the same thing with anyone. It's not just them, and I don't mean to pick on them. When you don't share the life experience as other people, then you know what? It's hard for you to empathize with them or understand them in any meaningful way, right? I mean, it just makes sense, right? Let me see. I do want that video. Yes. Can you get me that? I don't know how much time I'm going to have for some of these videos, but I'd like it. Yeah, I'd like it. I don't want you to glitch me over it. Okay. Sorry. And again, I mean, I want it just to show there are things he's saying. He's been backed into a corner now. He already brought them up thinking they're legitimate. So it's not like he can he can just pretend that, he didn't believe it before. But there are things like the hang's a great example that this is all bullshit. And now he realizes so much of what he's been told is bullshit, but it's kind of a little bit too late to back out of some of it. And you can't just take something you said back because you'll look like an idiot. So he's just got to kind of keep going with it. All right. Now, if you fast forward to that one of the other major points on the graph that I showed you was when Donald Trump tweeted that he didn't want people's support anymore who are bringing up Epstein. And ever since then, look at what's happened. And then you guys have to understand the relationship that these two issues have. The foreign policy entanglements in the debacle and the Epstein issue, which served as a proxy issue for accountability for this group of voters who's causing this. Because I know there's this there's the lie out there that oh my God, our association with Groypers is going to cost us the midterms. That's a completely fabricated bullshit lie that they're making. They don't even believe it themselves. All right. I've had donors try to convince me and they don't even sound convinced themselves. They're not even trying to convince me. They're trying to get me to lie to you. That's what they want me to do. They want me to lie to you about what's going on. Why? Because they still want to move forward with their project. They want what they want. They don't really give a shit about you. They want what they want, and they can tell themselves whatever lies they need to tell themselves because they're going to survive no matter what. If Democrats take the House and impeach Donald Trump, whatever, they don't give a shit. They'll be fine. Their lives are good. They don't care about you and whether or not you're hurt economically or whether or not they'll prosecute you. They'll start running around and rounding up Catholics again. Like Kash Patel's new pick for deputy director of the FBI did before Kash promoted him. And there's even more waiting for confirmation. But if you thought this guy was just like a company guy and no good, wait. I got an earful from people that knew him. And one of them is such a bad accusation. I need confirmation, which they can get me. I can't just say it out loud without confirmation. It's bad. And this is who they put. I'm starting to think that Kash is promoting scapegoats for his own failures. I'm investigating the groups who are putting on these ICE protests. Kash, Matlock, go to Craigslist.com. Jesus. Anyway, you can see this trend clear as day. So Tucker and Nick Fuentes didn't have anything to do with it. This was a failure to deliver on a promise, multiple promises, and combined with a sense of betrayal that not only did you not do that, but then you jumped in bed with those people. Those very same people who they feel you're protecting. See, this is what a lot of people who don't seem to understand, who have money or have privilege, this is what they don't seem to understand, okay? All of the issues that we talk about being wrong with the country, Americans see things, and honestly, there's a genius about the simplicity of how they see it. There's a certain genius that I almost... well, I don't know, that I kind of admire how, not that it's profound, it's actually rather simple. And that's its genius, is that they have this thought out, dude, don't overcomplicate things. There's a ruling class. There's different standards for them. They fuck everything up because they abuse that privilege. They abuse that double standard. And that creates all of our problems. So to stop overcomplicating it, right? Immigration, we can all get down into the weeds about how it impacts this and impacts that. And to them, it's just look, stop. Lindsay needs somebody to fold his laundry and mow his lawn. They can do whatever they want. Did we vote on this? No, we didn't vote on this. It doesn't matter. They are held to a different standard. Jeffrey Epstein can abuse with a very lopsided power relationship. He can abuse 2 young girls, let's just call them that, too young to do that with. All right, because I know this is debate over, is he a pedophile? Nah, I mean, I get what you're saying. Pedophilia is prepubescent, so it isn't technically accurate, although that we know of, God almighty. That we know of, God forbid, I should say. But truth be told, I mean, it's underage girls. And he's just a freaking rapist. I mean, that's it. He can do that because he's part of that crew, because he knows so many of the other people who are also part of that crew, because he's got dirt on that crew, because he's a free agent. He works with the Israeli government, Mossad. He works with British intelligence, MI6. He works with American intel services. He's a free agent and an asset for everybody. He can just get away with it. That's just it. That's the broken system that we live in. And guys like him are not just corrupting it and then breaking it and creating all of these issues. And here's the kicker. Here's the real kicker on it. They see it as being done at their expense. So it's not like they're just doing it and nobody's getting hurt. This system is benefiting them at the expense of everybody else, the normals. So when you did not deliver on them, for them, on these issues, on that issue, the proxy issue specifically, they felt that there was no reason to continue with this movement and to continue with this, because if you can't take this down, then you're never going to go to the heart of the problem. You're just tinkering around the rest of the issues, tinkering around the edges on the issues, and nothing is going to be meaningfully done to change the core problem in the country. That's what the donor class can't understand. And it's 4%, Charlie. That's the best guess, brother. We were always trying to measure it back then, like actually quantify it. I think it's 4%. And they just check the fuck out. And I don't think they're coming back unless you do something huge. But you're not doing something huge with picks like Chris for the deputy director of the FBI. Like, that guy is not going to take down the oligarchy. Like, you kidding me? He's a very typical company guy. Follow the orders. Listen to the man, protect the institutions, protect the system the way it's done, preserve the system. That's not what people voted for. It's just not. All right. All right. So I'm going to take a break here real quick before the end of the hour. I'm going to play you a clip while I do. Again, so while people spoon feed you this bullshit excuse why Republicans are losing the state of Alaska right now, for why Republicans are head-to-head with a nutcase in Texas, and only one candidate has a lead that's well within the margin of error. That's why. All right. I mean, why did Republicans lose the Virginia gubernatorial election by double digits and get defeated for attorney general by a guy who literally fantasized about killing his political opponents? That's why. I mean, it's just on and on and on. And to bury your head in the sand and pretend like it's not the case is incredibly stupid. So, it's good the administration is pivoting to the domestic and they're trying to deal with the issues that voters actually care about, which number one is still cost of living, although the gap has shrunk. Inflation, cost of living. 2 is overall economy and jobs. 3 is healthcare. All right. By the way, 4 is accountability and corruption. Let me play this clip. All the right people for you to listen to on whether or not we should bomb Iran. We'll be back. Don't forget, actually, before I hit this button, don't forget, if you like the videos, to like them and to share them far and wide. We'll be right back.
So served as U.S. ambassador to the UN under President George W. Bush. Ambassador, how do you read what the president is now saying versus what he has been saying?
Well, I think that's the sound of Donald Trump walking backward. That doesn't necessarily indicate what he's going to do. I think this is Trump saying one thing one day and another thing the next day. There's no doubt that there were mass murders of protesting civilians on Saturday and Sunday night, and the figure of 2,000, 2,500 dead, I think, will turn out tragically to be very low. 10,000, 15,000 when you get reports from all over the country. It was.
I'm just telling you, I actually do know somebody in country. I'm supposed to be drinking my thing and resting my voice, but I think it is worth muting it. I actually do know somebody who is in the country. He says that's bullshit. It's just total bullshit. He also said that a lot of the dead are actually government, like soldiers and security forces who were in some cases beaten to death unarmed. So, I mean, it was just whatever. I mean, let's just go back to the break. But, you know, it's John Bolton. What do you expect?
It's bad. Now, the number killed on Monday and Tuesday night was much lower because people were not going out in many of the places that Western journalists and others can identify because they didn't want to get killed. So it doesn't mean that the conduct of the regime has gotten better. It means people stayed indoors. But I think without some American action to underline what Trump has previously said, if we basically do nothing, I think it will be a blow to his credibility because he did draw red lines and the regime did cross them. And as of right this moment, we haven't done anything in response.
Yeah, I mean, to Caitlin's point.
First of all, the red line was killing protesters, right? Trump is now aware that, number one, this is being pushed by our own government and the Israeli government. Violence is being stoked the way they stoked violence in our own country during January 6th. During January 6th, 2020, or 2021, excuse me. They're doing the same thing there. So, you know, I mean, that's not the red line. It's not. And it's like ridiculous that he did believe some of this nonsense at first, because now he's in this like position where I'll play you the clip. It was Fox asked him just a little bit ago about the hangings, and you know, the administration trying to walk it back and say, well, they canceled the hangings. I'm telling you, with somebody who's actually in country telling me that that was never real. That's not real. Like, so you are told, and I'm not over here, you know, telling you the Iranians tell the truth. I'm telling you that the Western media lies a lot. We're even back to like CBS News pushing human interest stories about Kurdish fighters and finding like the prettiest Kurdish Iranian girl they can to put up on the screen so you as men want to go and rescue her. And like, they know exactly what they're doing. That was the same lie they gave us during Iraq. They're going to fight for their freedom. They're ready. They just need a little bit of help. All the U.S. needs to do is give it a little push. It's bullshit. It's all bullshit. And then the country destabilizes, followed by the region, and we're stuck there for the next 2 decades. No, thank you. I mean, that's how little they think of you. That's how little they think of you. They just recycle the same thing. I, at this point, wouldn't even be shocked if I saw them say that the mullahs were throwing babies out of incubators. I kid you not.
He had said, you know, if you're killing people in the streets, that was
Right.
one kind of red line. And then suddenly it became executions. Essentially, I mean, they have been executing people in the streets. The security services, as we know, as you said, we don't know the full number. But whether it's execution by hanging, as was going to be the case in Mr. Sultani, by all reports, or whether they're being slaughtered in the streets, it's still reports. Executions.
Sure, but it's Trump looking for the off-ramp.
Yeah. To what extent?
See, now here's the foreign policy blob doing what they do, and they know it works to try to bring Trump back to the strikes. They're going after like his manhood. Like, this is Trump backing off. No, this is Trump realizing you're full of shit. And he's deciding what to do. And this is what they'll do in response. Oh, Trump is cowering. He caved. Or maybe he just listened to his voters. Maybe he doesn't want this to be his legacy. We'll see. Because Trump is very unpredictable. And honestly, all of these people out there who think Donald Trump plays 4D chess, they don't know what the fuck they're talking about. Donald Trump listens to opinions. Usually the last one that was the most persuasive is the one who gets their way. This idea that he's got some like thing, it's just it's ridiculous. It's not true. It's completely, it's like the world you want to live in with the Trump you think exists, and neither a reality at all. Does he pull head fakes and stuff? Of course. Here is him having to respond, because I just can't even stand looking at John Bolton's mustache anymore. Here's Donald Trump responding to the hanging situation, which again, I'm being told like is just like greatly exaggerated to the point of fabrication. A lot of the bodies and the body bags at the morgues with the footage that's being disseminated on Twitter is actually secure. There are a lot of security forces in those body bags. The crowd is violent. The crowd has been violent. They're not protests, they're riots. And security forces out there trying to keep, obviously, stability. That's the point of police power. Were beaten to death in several cases, even though they were unarmed. They didn't even they were told to go out without firearms, without lethal force, and they were killed for it. So, I mean, it's just, you never get the whole story listening to Western media. They're full of shit. So here's Trump now trying to respond to it.
Have Israeli officials convinced you to not strike Iran?
Nobody convinced me. I convinced myself. You had yesterday scheduled over 800 hangings. They didn't hang anyone. They canceled the hangings. That had a big impact.
That had a big impact. Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably true. Once he realized that wasn't going to happen, then, he's not a guy who wants to sit around and watch people suffer. I mean, Donald Trump doesn't like war, or at least he didn't. I don't know. Maybe something snapped in him now and it's different. But I can tell you, the OG Trump, the Trump we all have known for most of the Trump era, he doesn't like war. But on the same token, it's like it's like two heads on the same coin or something, or what's that expression? He doesn't like war for the same reasons. He also doesn't like to see mass human suffering. And if he can do something about it, even if that means using the military, he will. And if you were president, put yourself in the position. If that was real and they were going to hang like 1,000 people in Tehran, would you do nothing? It's kind of hard, I mean, knowing you have the power. But speaking of which, that's what also was a big part of it, was Trump coming to the realization that he was being lied to about the capabilities of Tehran to fight back. And they don't know whether or not the operation that was the options that were presented to him will even have any meaningful impact on the regime. Why? Because the assessments that were not bullshit show clearly that the Iranians do have institutional control. So what comes after? Even if the airstrikes, and they're not just airstrikes, but even if they were, whatever, even if the military action that, in this hypothetical he ordered were successful, and they did let's say they cut the head off the snake. Is this a snake that can just grow another head or just operate without its head anyway? And that's the problem. There is the Shah is a joke. The so-called self-appointed crown prince is a joke, right? These stupid little propaganda videos of him pretending to sit in like fighter jets with a uniform. The guy's not fucking done a thing like that in his life. It's a joke. Mech, who pays people like Rudy Giuliani, MEK. By the way, a lot of your influencers are taking money from Iranian resistance forces. They are taking money from MEK, Mech. Actually, several of them I know and like. I just totally... one of them said, I'm going to go get money from Mech. Will you do a poll for us? I'm like, are you serious? No. And if I do, are you going to accept the results? Because I'm polling right now, and I'm telling you the American public wants nothing to do with this. And the other side of the argument, which is the Bannon-Tucker argument, punched through to Trump. And Trump's going to have lunch with Tucker today. I think he probably already did. It's 3:10. He already did. And that is that if the United States does do something, even if these protests were legitimate, not Mossad pushed, which we know they are, Even former Secretary Mike Pompeo, a vehement zealot of a Christian Zionist, said himself he mirrored the language of Mossad, who on their Persian Twitter feed said, we're not just with you in spirit and principle, but we're with you in person on the ground. We're here with you. Pompeo himself mirrored what they said. Mossad is with you, like literally on the ground. So even if they were credible protests and the Iranians wanted their regime gone, not just economic reforms, which is what they took to the streets over anyway. They wanted their regime gone. If we help them, it will taint any real, true revolution that was even in the mix. Once the West touches it, the anti-Western element, which is the majority, by the way, this is a state 2.5 times the state of Texas. That's how big this is. This is why Charlie opposed it. He thought this was ridiculous. He thought this was like legit insanity. But again, going back to the point, even if it did and we knocked the head of the regime off, the anti-Western opposition forces would forever have a rallying cry against whatever government is installed after. Now the mullahs, it's true, are biding their time. Ever since the 12-day war, they have restocked. That's something else Donald Trump realized. They have restocked. Their capabilities are way different. And if they view this strike to truly be a threat to them, not the strike last year, they didn't view as a threat to them as a regime. That's why they didn't retaliate. They barely lobbed a missile, and they called Donald Trump ahead of time. And they said, here are the coordinates. We're lobbing a few missiles over there in Qatar. And it's supposed to be at you. Just a heads up. Move your people out of there. It's a joke because they didn't view those strikes as existential. This would be existential. And they are very clear. You do that, they're sending missiles that Israel cannot stop into Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. So Donald Trump, again, apparently cares more about the lives of Israeli people than their own fucking government does. Because he was lied to about that. Oh, we can knock them down. Oh, they're like, no, you can't. And you couldn't last time either. If it wasn't for us, a lot more people would have died inside the state of Israel. It's a load of shit. It's like Netanyahu lies with such ease. It's pathological. It's unbelievable how easily this guy... Look, politicians lie. But it's unbelievable how pathological this guy lies. By the way, the most supportive group of strikes against Iran, new strikes against Iran, are college-educated white voters. And they're still not even thrilled. I'm just saying they're the most thrilled. Non-college voters are actually the most opposed. It's almost uniform. When you get to like more than 3/4, that's damn near uniformity. I mean, that's as unanimous as you're going to get in today's America. I mean, it's just, unbelievably popular. Unpopular. Unbelievably unpopular. Not even white evangelicals want this. And there are some, of course, there are boomer evangelicals who are rah-rah, always for dropping bombs. I mean, I'm sorry, guys. I consider myself to be a non-denominational evangelical. I'm becoming more of an evangelical as time goes on. Because I Scott gave me a boost. He gave me a boost that you're not just boring. You're not just boring people, and you're not just, being a pain in the ass to people. You're trying to save souls, Netanyahu called again earlier today, by the way, to pressure Donald Trump to do it again. So to pressure Donald Trump to not back off of these strikes. Again, I think it's important. If you're going to do something like this, you're going to go after a regime. You're going to decide who can and cannot rule their country. You better be honest with the American public about what the after looks like. And Israel does not intend to give the Iranian people back their entire country. They don't. It's time to stop lying about this. They want parts of Egypt. It's insane. It's legit insane. Like, hello, some people live there. That's somebody else's country. They don't give a fuck. They'll raise everything like they raised Gaza and rebuild over the rubble. It's fucking twisted. Not to mention, Americans don't want any part of it. If you have any intention of narrowing this gap or bringing this thing back down to reality, you better get that through your damn heads. Nobody wants military action. And I'm not saying be a pacifist loser. I'm saying you have to deal with you. Now it's not just about doing what you said you were going to do, because that's how you maintain your numbers. That's how you make sure you don't get wiped out in the midterms. Now it's about convincing people that, like, my bad, and now I'm on the right path. I got to see when Laura's going here because, oh no. Forget I have to go to the dealership. I wait until you guys see my new stuff. Oh my God, I can't wait to share it with you. I'm growing because of the gym. My chest is getting bigger. My belly's getting smaller, although I still have a belly, unfortunately. 44-year-old belly. Dad bod. That's what the dance moms call it. Got a dad bod. Don't worry. It's not bad. That's a dad bod. You know what? I'm kind of like, I don't know. I'm kind of flattered by that. I like that, actually. Dad bod. Although I don't want love handles, which I don't have, and I want to shrink my stomach more, but my chest and my arms are growing, so I had to get new suits. And I think it's called indigo blue. It was like a brighter blue, but I couldn't get them in 3 pieces. And that sucks. You know, that's like a deal breaker. Now, when the spring is coming, that's different. I will get spring suits that are like less traditional, I guess you could say, and less conservative, whatever the word is. And that I'll get some brighter colors in. But I needed, like, you know, your universal suits, guys. You know what I'm talking about. You have like winter suits, you have springs and falls, and then you have universal, which could be for every season. And for those, you need at least a black, a gray, and like most men get like a navy blue. Navy to me, I'm getting over. I do have a 3-piece navy blue suit. I do like it quite a bit. But again, like I said, I can still get in it. It's just that my arms and my chest are getting bigger. So I had to go out and get this suit. And I was looking for one suit that I could get. And then once I like them, as much as I like them, I'll get all 3 colors in them again. And just one place I really, guys, don't worry. I'm not getting paid to say this. Charles Twitt. It's like this men's thing. It's based in Britain. I absolutely love it. It's expensive. And like, I'm afraid to buy from them more than I have because it's like hard to make sure you get your size right. So I found this awesome men's store that's local. Husband and wife owned. Great people that work there. They're great. And he was like, I know what you want. I know what you're talking about. Let me try it. Let me show you this one. And it's in a 3-piece. I got it in what they call American blue, which is lighter than navy blue, but it's not like an indigo blue. It's still like a dark blue, but it's not navy because I don't like navy. Love it. And I realized, like, because I had to go get it fitted. I mean, they took all my measurements, but you still got to make sure the cuffs are good and pants are hemmed. So they're doing that today. So when it comes, I'm just going to order the gray and the black too, because I want all 3. Because wait till you see this vest, guys. This vest is like different than my other vests. And I was wondering, like, why does this look so sharp? Why do I really like this vest more? Details. The stitches, like in the breast of the vest, the stitching is awesome. And the buttons are smaller. So there's 5 buttons. And I think the other ones I have are like 3 to 4, but they're bigger. like big button. You've seen them, you guys know. Like, and it's sharp. It looks sharp, but like they're bigger buttons. This one has more, and they're smaller, so it just looks, I don't know, sharper. And then the stitching, I can't wait. I'm so pumped over this suit. I was not thinking I was going to like this suit that much, and I'm like, whoa. Because the 3-piece is it. And like, you have to feel good in a 3-piece, or otherwise you're restricted. My back is getting wider. And so like those other vests are like, I'm like, oh man, like I feel fitting in them. I'm fitting in this still, but I'm growing. And it was tight. Can't wait to show it to you guys. Locals, you know what I'm talking about. I told you I was going hunting for a new suit. I did get like a bunch of stuff from them. Like, you know, like I got an awesome sports coat, a sports jacket, which is, I think is my favorite sports jacket. And then some other stuff, shirts and pants and whatever, which I had to get him. But man, I'm talking about a sharp suit, you know? And then, so now it's in, and I'm just like over the moon. So wait till you see it, especially locals. I'll pop on when I get it back. Probably take 2 or 3 days for the alterations. When I get it back, I'll do a video and I'll show you this. It's like amazing. And they ordered me these shoes too, which already I forgot, but laces, they're annoying me. I know I'm going off the deep end here, but you could buy a $400 pair of dress shoes, and the freaking laces will wear down after a couple weeks. Like, I can't stand it. So I wanted the straps, and there's a name for them, guys. Maybe you guys know. Gentlemen, maybe you know. Double something they're called. You know what I'm talking about? Double something. Come on, locals. You know what I'm talking about. It is a double something. Maybe YouTube. Maybe you guys know. Double something. I don't know. But when I do, I will, you know, yeah, I'm Italian. I'm from the metro area. Yep. From New York City. Yep. So it's like, not everybody wears double bishop strap. Maybe that's it. Maybe it's not the breasted. I'm talking about the shoes. It's like there are buckles. Like Benny Johnson told me as you get it. He's like, dude, you look good in those shoes. And like, I just blew it off. And then I was at there getting the alterations, and I could see like the shoes are right by the mirrors, and I'm looking at the shoes, and I'm like, can I see those? But like, this shoe was a bit too big. So I have to be careful with narrow pointed shoes, because I don't have like a monk strap. Joe, yes, Loki, it's a monk strap. That is definitely what it's called, brother. Thank you. Loki 139 monk strap. That's it. Thank you so much. That was driving me crazy, Loki. Oh, and by the way, Paul, double monk strap. Thanks, Paul. Yep. That was driving me nuts. Driving me crazy. And they're really, really sharp color brown, which matches a belt that I just had cut to length. And because like, if you're going to have like, it's not a navy, it's not as dark as a navy, but it is still dark. It's called American blue. You guys could probably look it up, but it's not a light blue. It is still dark, but it's a sharp dark. I think it's a sharp dark. But then you want your brown to be light. You know what I mean? You want a brighter brown, so you pop. And those shoes with that belt, Plus, I got a blue tie that is a dark blue tie, but it's a lighter one, and it's satin. Or no, silk. It's silk. So it pops because Laura didn't think that some of the shirts that I had, if I don't wear a solid color, then some of the ties won't work with other kinds of shirts, like so patterned shirts. Because I wear a lot of like, I guess they're like squares in the shirt, like I like their window panes. You know, I like that. And if you have too busy of a tie, it will clash. Hey, honey. All right, so yeah, let's get to some of these questions before Laura rips me off of here, because I do have to go to a dealership soon, and then I have to get a poll started. I do want to share the results of this poll. I'll get this poll out over the weekend. Well, it's not just about this, by the way. So it's interesting. We'll look at most important issues. I was hoping to get it done today, but I don't think it's going to happen. Okay. What are the chances for my, oh, this is funny. What are the chances for my dream ticket of Candace Owens, Max Blumenthal 2028 on the Peace Party ticket, capturing both the black and Jewish votes? Jolly Lollipop. That's funny as hell. That's crazy. I do think it's funny. I mean, Obviously, I don't think the chances are good, of course, but like, I do think that if the administration does not end well, we're going to get some real, like, the possibilities are going to be, I think ultimately that means we get President AOC. I do. But because Gavin Newsom is not a serious candidate for the Democratic nomination at this point, he has got to win the South. And that means winning black Southern Democrats in a nomination. Democrats front-loaded the South, if you remember, in order to prevent any challenges to Joe Biden. So like Pete Buttigieg, a white gay man who couldn't even run a small town in the Midwest, that's not going to fly with them. I hate to tell everybody, but Southern blacks don't like gay men. It's like that. The term down low came from the black community because being gay was such a no-no. Being on the down low came from the black community, gay men saying, I'm on the down low, you on the down low. Like I don't think many people even know that, but that's true. So you're not going to get Pete Buttigieg through the Southern Democratic primary. Gavin Newsom's going to, as of right now, he can't at all. That's why Kamala Harris is number one every legitimate poll that's been conducted, because she's the only one with significant black support. And that will collapse. I don't think she's going to run again. And even if she does, I think she'd be beaten. AOC is going to be able to do that. On the Republican side, you're going to see some really creative stuff, Jolly. I really do think, because you're going to be like, Trump let us down. Vance was the vice president, and he knows. I'm not saying anything that's going to upset him. We did talk about this. I don't see how Vance can run if this continues. Now, he's writing, they are very, again, I don't want to just be negative here. They are very clearly trying to right the ship. I actually think Republicans can win the midterm elections. I'm not accepting this like minimal defeat kind of thing. That's bullshit. Just deliver the agenda for the public that you ran on, and they will reward you. This is not inevitable. It's not like written in stone. Moses did not come down from Mount Sinai with the 11th commandment saying, thou shalt lose your midterm election. Like, it's bullshit. It's an artifact of the system, and it's used as an excuse by failure politicians. You ever hear that shit from Roosevelt? Nope. But yeah, you'll see some really creative stuff if that is the case. Are you and Barnes going to DC more to let them know what we think, like Charlie used to? Yes. Barnes said Charlie used to send your messages to the White House. He did. Yeah. And I have messages from the president in response. Like, I just don't do what other people do and go take them out and show everybody. Mark Levin, I find fucking hilarious. Mark Thiessen, I find fucking hilarious. I have messages from the president making fun of them. You don't see me plastering it everywhere like I'm somebody. Like, those are, But Charlie definitely was our ambassador to the White House. I mean, it's impossible to like exaggerate his impact. And the fact is, Charlie got it. He got it. So I didn't have to try to teach him why something was significant or why something was the way it was. He knew, even if it was something he didn't expect, when it came down and this is the way it was, he'd be like, oh, you know why? I get it. I go, okay, I get that. So then he could parlay, that message in his own way, because he was confident enough to do so, because he actually did understand it. All of these cheerleader pretenders, they're dangerous. I mean, that level of sycophancy is dangerous. So yeah, I think, I just can't say anything yet, but I'll be back sooner than you think. Vance at least needs a contingency plan to separate from Trump in the very likely case that he continues to cave to the blob and keeps plummeting. I agree. I don't know how he can do it without stuff not getting ugly between them, but I think so, Rich, will you be polling opinions of the use of the word retard or retarded as pejorative? I asked some different AIs, and it appears the rise of these words hurts the MAGA movement. I understand how you use the word, but many MAGA supporters that love someone with special needs are turned off by their use. We haven't polled it, but we actually did focus group that, but not directly for that purpose. Well, directly, but not for that purpose. There's no doubt it's not just the special needs issue. It's age. It's age. So age is the biggest signal. Like, so you could have a younger couple who does have like a special needs brother or a special needs child, or you have somebody who has a brother or something like that. If they're younger, they tend not to be that upset with it. But if they're like, again, everything's like that millennial and above kind of thing. If you're, because millennial and Generation X are like really close. There could be a point where it's really close. But, you know, let's call it 50, 45, 50 and above. They do get deeply offended by it, actually. Yeah, they do. And honestly, this goes to like what we were saying before. Like, we probably wouldn't even be having this conversation. Ideas. If ideas, not money, instead. We probably wouldn't even be having this conversation if not for like the inorganic rise of people like Nick Fuentes, who also use these words. And, you know, then it's like, and it's inorganic because they were, and I hate to tell you this, Nick, but this is what they did to you. They like propped them up so they could have somebody to blame for their own actions. And then like, they're damaging the movement in the process because you're like you're trying to make him the unacceptable thing, and then others are being linked to him, and that's like unfairly, I would argue. But yeah, we haven't large scale polled it. I mean, it's like one of those things that's really hard to do, you know. Prox Europa says, literally, I have autism, and I will say, fuck it. Y'all should be allowed to say retard. I mean, look, I think what it comes down to is that there is a moment where political correctness is being rejected. I mean, we lived through this era of like, that was the least of it. I mean, people said anything they want. Did you see Tucker go on and on with Piers Morgan about using the word, the F word? And I don't mean fuck. I mean, like, you know, for gayness. And he's speaking to a lot of these people. Like, there are, in my generation, we grew up with the rise of political correctness, and it was very annoying. And so we view it as like fighting back. Like every time you use one of these, like, you know, banned words, you're giving a big middle finger to the system. You know, let me swap over. I'll get to the rest of YouTube in a second. Let me just go to Dread Robert once I'm at locals now. So I think the public cares. What the hell happened to your comment? Oh, there it is. I think the public cares about ground level effects. GDP is not a prime mover of opinion. You are 100% correct. This like obsession with the GDP number, bad. Because it doesn't matter. People don't care about GDP numbers. They don't. Like, you can use it in your overall message, but Dread Robert's right. They just don't care about that at all. And it's not going to make a big deal. Look, guys, November in 2018, the economy was smoking good, and Republicans got their asses kicked. It's not enough. Either is the official inflation rate. Yep, people look at prices in their lives and the wages they and those they know get. He's so totally right. It's part of why dumb statements like it's interest rate, not the price, or behind the negative reaction of 50-year mortgage rates, 50-year mortgages, people respond most to what they experience, not some fake government number like employment, GDP, and such. In Washington, they love the fake numbers. Man, that is totally on the money. Like, totally on the money. 100%. And I said, by the way, just so you know, I will tell you this, Dread Robert, I absolutely told them to give up the session with the GDP number. Like that, nobody cares. We need alternative measurements of lifestyle, you know? On Life of Brian's question, it's tough, Brian, because like, how do you do that without drawing Trump's ire? And then he'll do something like endorse Marco, you know? So JD is in an almost impossible situation. But at some point, if this continues, because I am optimistic they are going to try to right the ship. I just don't see how you can do it without firing Bondi. That's number one. The gatekeeping has to stop. That's number two. And certainly the president, who used to care about lobbyists, needs to do a better job policing his own people and their activities, because Democrats already know, and they're going to come for you over it. The only question is whether or not wait until you hear about these people too. They're fairly insignificant people, and they're making a killing on the Trump administration. You probably don't even know some of them, and you'll think to yourself, who the fuck are they? Who the fuck do they think they are that they're so important they get to cash in like this at the expense of everybody else and the movement? It's outrageous. President needs to open his eyes. Because they're going to take him over it. They're going to take him over it. He needs to be able to say, I found out and I got rid of them. I put an end to this. But what happened to the ban? The lobbying ban on the administration? What happened to that? Don't you remember the Gettysburg Address from 2016? What happened to the Donald Trump who doesn't permit his staff to lobby directly or indirectly? What happened to that, Mr. President? What happened to that? Rich, it feels like they are purposely giving the country away to Dems for the next decades. The pendulum will swing even harder next cycle. Shameful. Yeah. That's the thing. Totally agree with that comment. If they don't right this ship, it's going to swing. You think the reaction to Bush was bad? Oh my God. It will be a disaster. All right. I think I got to get going here. I think it's about time. None but love for you guys as always. I missed one. Hold on. Stephen Hightower. What happened to Tulsi? Did someone get to her? Man, she went 360 on Venezuela. The next peace president? What a joke. What about the New START treaty? Right. Tulsi is the last good person remaining. I think that was Tulsi attempting to get back into the conversation. They boxed her out. That's the truth. Tulsi wasn't even in the room for Venezuela. They're not consulting her on this stuff with Iran. Why? I will tell you why. Tulsi doesn't get along with the Israeli lobby. That's why. Tulsi doesn't believe Benjamin Netanyahu because he's a liar. So instead of listening to your director of national intelligence, who represented a faction of the coalition you cannot lose or you can't win, instead of listening to the woman who is literally at the top on the narrow end of the bottleneck of information in the intelligence community, she knows everything. Instead of listening to her, listen to the liar Benjamin Netanyahu. Look, whether you support or don't support the Iranian strike, it's not debatable whether or not Bibi Netanyahu is an honest man or not. He's not. He's a very dishonest man. All right. So there's no, you're not debating in good faith if you're going to sit here and tell me Netanyahu is an honest person. Maybe in your world, your Fox News bubble, whatever, Bibi Netanyahu is a liar. And he's been lying America into wars for 3 decades. Literally the same lie over and over again. Now we're back to the Kurds. Did you see that in CBS? Did you see their propaganda film? Oh my God, you got to see it. If you haven't seen it, you got to see it. You know what? I'm doing it. I'm stealing your thing, Max. It's Max Blumenthal's. I'll cut it real quick. I'll do it. Yeah, this is so important. You have to see it. Sorry, Max. I got to credit. Just so everybody knows, I got to credit Max Blumenthal. Okay. Because this is his. I believe he did this. Okay. But he's right. By the way, the Gray Zone does some really good reporting. I've only ever read it for Blumenthal, but I don't know. More and more lately, I've been reading the Gray Zone. It's good. You got to see this. I mean, you got to see this. I think, and just to finish answering your question, Stephen, I think she's really just trying to get back and to have a seat at the table because she's been cut out. Check this out. You're going to love this.
Mountains here in northern Iraq, only around 30 miles or so from the Iranian border, to meet with fighters from an armed and outlawed Iranian opposition group. They are known as the Democratic Party of Iranian Kurdistan. Now, many of their fighters are women.
It's literally the same name. It's literally the same name as the Northern Kurds in Iraq, the Democratic Republic of Kurdistan or something. It's literally the same. I think they may have swapped it out for Republican or something, but
and they are preparing for the day when the Iranian regime can be ousted from power. They dream of a democratic Iran. They represent the Kurdish ethnic minority, which is around 10% of the population in Iran.
Okay, understand this. They represent a fraction of that 10%. Not everyone in the Kurdish population in Iran, which is only 10% to begin with, not all of them support them. That's how much of a minority they are. And yet you're supposed to believe that they're going to be some effective fighting force, and all you got to do is give them a little tap and the Kurds are going to take over because they dream of a democrat and free Iran. I don't mean to laugh at the plight of people, but we have heard this before, folks. You can't fabricate a better story, a new story. You have to recycle the same bullshit over and over. Every 10 years or so, you just hope we forget. It's been 20 since we heard this one. They just hope you all forgot or you didn't hear it. You weren't around for it. It's the same lie. I'm not saying they don't want their freedom. I'm saying it's not a viable situation. That is not a viable option. And they don't just need a little love tap and they're going to take. What a crock. They are one, as Charlie himself pointed out, they are one of over a dozen factions who will all promptly beginning to kill each other once the mullahs are gone. I'm not saying the mullahs are good. Let them sort it out is what I'm saying. Let them sort it out. Any touch we have on this anyway, we'd instantly make them illegitimate. If we help that group, we would instantly make them illegitimate in the eyes of the Iranian people, the Persian people, the same way we made the Northern Kurds. Honestly, Dave Smith is right. It's just the same idiots with the same stupid ideas over and over again. Only in politics can you be this wrong all the time and yet somehow not be disqualified from continuing your career in the space. Any other job, you'd be out.
And one of their commanders, Sayran Gargoli, told us that despite the terrible violence, in a way, the protests inside Iran give them hope because she believes it shows that the regime can be toppled, especially with international help. Now, there's a big question around international help. For days, President Trump threatened to hit Iran very hard.
We're looking at some very strong options.
But then yesterday he said he'd been given assurances that the killings were going to stop and there wouldn't be any executions. And he said he's going to watch the process. Well, we are also watching the process, watching what's happening in Iran. And one of the things we're looking for is the extent to which these protests have weakened the Iranian regime.
And to the extent they have, they really haven't. And that's the real assessment. Institutions are loyal to the regime. So, turns out it's not as easy as some people led the president to believe. Again. Believable. It's the same crap. They can't even come up with a better lie. It's like they don't even try to tell good lies anymore. You know, when the government used to lie to us, they used to like lie and they were like believable, credible almost, like versions of a story they would tell us. They don't even try anymore. They don't even try. They think that little of you. You're just going to bah and come along for the ride. They don't even make it believable. They don't even care enough anymore. Like, we didn't kill our own president. Look at this crazy conspiracy that happened. And at the heart of it is a communist. At least that was a good story. Crying out loud. Don't forget, if you like the videos, to like them and to share them far and wide. The Greenland issue, how does that poll? That's the last question. That's a great question. It polls very badly if you're talking about military action. If you're talking about procuring Greenland in a deal, that's a totally different story. Totally different story. Now, there's going to be about 40% bottom who are going to say they oppose all of this just because they're at this point, the Trump hate is back, like that real like Trump hate we saw in the first administration. A big part of that is starting to roll back, and that's tragic to see because he had gotten rid of it so much. It was like down to like 30%. Like not even a third of the country strongly disapproved at one point of Donald Trump. And now go look at the intensity index on Big Data Poll. You'll see if you go to the approval center, you will see what I'm talking about. It's tragic. The intensity index is the difference between strong approval and strong disapproval. Here it is right here. It's the big fat dotted line that goes at the bottom. We showed this on purpose. The shaded area is the net for the index. And for the approval. So you can see that the intensity index, even when his approval rating started to recover somewhat, the intensity index did not. 40.1% now strongly disapprove at that low. Look at that. It was just about a quarter, 27.2. It was like the Trump hate was gone. And, it could have been gone forever. Honestly, the generational change would have made sure of it. It could have been gone forever, but now it's back. It's sad, but it is back. Meanwhile, strongly approve is now down to only 26%, just about a point under the low for strong disapproval. It's just not good. It's not good. And we'll have some updated numbers on that. So you're going to get about 40%. It will tell you they disapprove of taking Greenland, period, because they're just opposing anything Donald Trump says or does. And it can get higher than that 40 when you add the people who were Trump supporters who are now just mad that he's talking about other nations in general. And that's, again, it's roughly about 5%, 4 or 5%. So, yeah, you're looking at like 45. It is close. When you're talking about just procuring it, there's an argument to be made for it. Again, I shared this with them. I told them when it's done, I will share the rest. There is a correct argument to make for Greenland, but that requires you telling everybody the whole truth. They have to decide whether they want to do that yet. But it is very simple. We need to be a multi-planetary species for whatever reason. You don't even have to go this far, but America has to be the predominant force in space. You need Greenland to be able to carry out those plans. Just tell people the truth and tell people why it is the case, despite the fact that you think it's going to have some pretty significant consequences. It has to be told. I actually don't agree with that assessment. I think Americans can handle it, and I think it's overdue. I know Trump wants to do this. What I'm talking about, he should just do it. Not to mention, that's a legacy item right there. There's a case to make for the Don Roe doctrine. It just has to be done correctly. And so far, it's like they're telling these really bad stories because they're only giving Americans half of the story. You got to give them the whole story. Trust them. Trust their ability to accept it or believe, to understand it even. Trust their ability to do that because they will. All right. I'm going to have to get going here. I will see you guys locals. I'll see you guys in a little bit. Next week, I think we're going to get back on normal schedule. All right. Sound like a plan? Don't forget, if you have a reoccurring contribution, a reoccurring donation to the Public Polling Project, make sure it's going into the current thing. If not, cancel it and then send it over. You can sign in, like I told you. If you've ever contributed, you may want to just double check. You have a donor dashboard you can sign into. If you don't know your password, just put your email in. It will give it to you. It'll send it to you through email. Go there and check up on everything. All right. If you haven't made a contribution in a while, consider doing it. But if you have, go and check and make sure you don't have a recurring donation if you do not want to do that. All right. Only you have the power to police that. We can't go in and give like tons and tons of refunds. We've been doing it for people who didn't know they had it checked. But it's hard, and it's kind of like it can be tough, be kind of a pain because some of these funds are closed. So make sure you're not just contributing to a fund that is not directing the money over there. So the good news is that they were underfunded. So as of right now, it's still okay. But I don't want you guys contributing to a project that met its quota. And then you just keep doing it and you don't realize there's still money coming dripping out of your bank account. Like even if it's like $5, it's still, you should know. So if you have a second, go there, go to Big Data Poll and go check it out. All right. And make sure that everything's up to snuff. Okay. What else? I don't know. If I forgot, I'll post it. I feel like I am forgetting something, but that's me. And other than that, have a great weekend and we will talk more about this. Remember, when people go to give you this BS gaslighting routine, all right, this like projection stuff, right? You got Mark Levin tweets, looks like Qatar sent its lobbyists back to the White House. Laura Loomer, why are Muslims in Qatar and Saudi Arabia dictating our foreign policy? They're pissed that Trump is meeting with Tucker because they want Iran bombed. All right. And the funny thing is, it's all projection. Qatar isn't paying Tucker Carlson. Okay. They are mad that their lobbying at this point is at risk of not working. Like, they're the ones with the lobbyists feeding the bad information to the White House. It's projection. When they say Tucker's going to cost us the midterms, understand they're lying to you. They know they cost you. They know it. They're trying to scapegoat someone else so the blame doesn't land firmly where it belongs, which is in their laps. They derailed the administration in 2025. They are why Donald Trump is underwater. They are why Democrats lead on the generic ballot. It literally directly ties to them. And they're trying to blame someone else. They lost the lead on the generic ballot long before Tucker Carlson interviewed Nick Fuentes. Unreal. But again, ruling class, donor class, whatever. It speaks to how little they think of you. That something like that, which is blatantly false, you'll just believe because they told you. Well, unfortunately for them, there are these things called polls and charts and trends. And we already went over them all. And what they are saying is false. You can it's literally, we called it that name because, like, you literally have to be that stupid to believe this. You have to be. Like, a normal stupidity is still not stupid enough. You have to be like missing something in your brain to look at this chart and think it was Tucker and Qatar. Stop it. Stop it. It was you demanding that you get what you want over the interest of the American public and stealing prime presidency from the voter, who aren't stupid and know that the second year is a lame duck year. Election years are always lame duck years. Donald Trump has to do something historic now. And he's going to have to try to do it, bullying the Republican majority into doing it too, because they don't want to. They want to lay low, not stir any unnecessary controversy up, run for re-election, and win so they can pay their donors back all over again. It is the grift town. Anyway, all right. Nothing but love for you all. We will see you on the other side of this thing. We will see what Donald Trump decides to do. All right. Hopefully, it's just have a few more lunches about healthcare, because that's what people want him to talk about. Inflation, cost of living, affordability, whatever you want to call it, the economy and jobs, and healthcare. And if you can get around to it, throw some accountability in there, because that's the last of the coalition that you're not able to get back without it. Like, we're beating a dead horse over here, folks. Beating a dead horse. But remain optimistic. Remain positive. You remember, I tell my kids every day before they leave the house, positive in, and they say positive out. You only get what you put into things. So remain positive and remain engaged and diligent. And we may write this thing yet. All right, guys. See you soon. Have a great time. Have a great Friday.